Hey, welcome back, everyone, here to Veteran Nation this week. And I am sad to report that TC is going to get a little bit of a reprieve. I have no headlines prepared for today. It just wasn't, it's a slow news week, with the holidays and everything. So he's going to not have to deal with my jokes.
Thank you for that Christmas present. It was a nice surprise. Didn't have to unwrap it, but it felt good to hear that there would be no headlines this week.
Yeah, yeah. You get a little bit of a reprieve, but I will be back, and hopefully I'll have some newer content in a couple weeks. I'm going to a gun show here in California, and I'm seeing if they're gonna let me do some recording there, and show that gun hole loophole that doesn't exist that they always say exists.
The gun hole loophole. I think you meant
Yeah.
gun show. Gun show.
Oh, gun show loophole. Did I say gun hole?
Skipper.
But you got some.
Does that explain your background?
That
is the best green screen ever.
You have something really cool to plug. Why don't we go ahead and get into that?
I have merch for my other channel. I have merch now. It's MinnesotaBlackRobeRegiment.com. If you want to order coffee, if you're a coffee drinker and you want to order coffee, you have to message me personally because we haven't added it to the site yet because I am a Luddite and I am no good at technology. And how to like PayPal, that sounds like a trap to me, but I know I'm going to have to get one set up. But this is the Minnesota Black Robe Regiment Muhlenberg roast. It is organic and fair trade because, we want to appeal to the hippies in the Patriot movement. And I chose to name it after one of the most famous pastors. He was a Lutheran, by the way. You know what? You know how coffee has always has those little vents?
Oh yeah.
Those little vacuums. Yeah, you know what?
Fresh.
Oh, smells so good. Smells so good. And this was exclusively roasted and blended by Brandon and Carla at Indy's Coffee.
Great people down there.
If you want to try Indy, what was that?
Great people down there.
They are phenomenal. If you want to try Indy's Coffee, make sure you order my roast from me, and they will get some money out of that deal. But the biggest thing about Indy's Coffee is what they do for the veteran community, and what they do for children and family members of fallen officers in the law enforcement world. One thing that they do that no other company does that I'm aware of is when they do a charity blend. So all of these different PTSD groups and fallen officer groups and everything, when they do a blend for them, what Indy's does is they make the blend for them in exclusive. So this isn't just a normal blend, that they just slap my label on, and that is my label. I have a friend that designed the front, and I wrote the thing on the back. They don't just slap a generic label on a generic blend. They make a blend that's exclusive to each charity or each group or each person. So in my case, I'm not a charity. Well, I'm a charity case, but they make a blend that's exclusive, and that charity, in the case of the PTSD groups and everything else that they sell for, when they sell it, they keep 100% of the proceeds. They don't get a portion of it. They get 100% of it. I mean, Brandon and Carla, Indy's Coffee, they front all of it. All of it, 100%. Product, they front the effort, the labor, and everything. They pay the few staff that they have that work for them. They pay them out of their own pockets. And if they sell a bag of coffee for $14.99, they keep $14.99 of that for the charity. Yep. Nobody else does that I'm aware of. No one.
Yeah.
No one.
Yeah, they do. They do a lot of great work down there. I do know that they help a lot of charities, a lot of different groups out. What you're saying is 100% correct. We had Brandon on the show. We got to get Brandon back on the show. But yeah,
I had him on my show, which is
yep,
kind of how we connected.
yeah, it was. Um, and yeah, that you know, just good people um, helping out each other. So if you please get some of TC's coffee, and if you can't get TC's coffee, order coffee from Indy's Coffee.
Yeah, you can get my coffee. So Indies will get the money, but TC needs it too. So you can find me on Facebook, TC Pearson or Minnesota Black Robe Regiment, and I would love to sell you more. I would like to be able to keep them so busy that all they're doing is making coffee for me. So, but
Absolutely.
Skipper, I think that's kind of a nice little segue into a little bit of what you wanted to talk about this week with veterans and some of the stuff that you've been running into, and I've been running into it as well.
Yeah, I was actually I've been helping several veterans because we do our show. People reach out to me, and I put them in contact with a lot of the nonprofits that I've already had on the show and talked with because they've been vetted at least a little bit by myself, so I know that these are good quality groups. Because if they didn't seem like it, I wouldn't have them on the show. But yeah, I get veterans who approach me for different things, and the VA has done a lot of things here recently in the last couple of years to try to improve the claim system. And if you're a veteran, I highly encourage you to put your disability claim in. I know, and this is what I'm going to talk about, the stigma of some people to not put in their claim. And here's what I'll tell everybody out there: put in your claim, let them tell you no. And here's the thing: don't be afraid that if you have something that's kind of like on the cusp, it's kind of 50-50, put it in. Because I've had conditions that I, no kidding, deal with all the time that the VA has either said I don't have or it's not service connected, which is complete and total BS. Um, and that's what I've been coming across is more and more vets who have gotten discouraged at the process. Feel free to reach out to me. There's a lot of groups out there to help you. I think the biggest problem with did you go through a VSO for years?
I've been out for a very long time. What's a VSO?
A veteran service officer. That's like someone who's at the DAV or the American Legion or the VFW, one of those who all they do is help people put in their claims.
I haven't actually put a claim in, so
Okay.
as of yet, working towards that.
You're going
I'm
to
a
miss the fun.
paratrooper. I'm a paratrooper, and I keep trying to blame my sore knees on everything but the military. And so I did see somebody at the behest of the local VA rep at the
Knees are
county
like the
level.
biggest thing that is denied. That's what I had denied to me was my knees. And they said, yeah, it's not service connected. What I found out later talking to people who do claims is even if you get it, it doesn't give you that big of a percentage unless if you like are using a walker type of thing. So, but there are things out there, like I get migraines, and I'll tell a lot of people out there that when I talk to them, I find out they have migraines as well because it's a secondary symptom of PTSD and a couple other things that a lot of veterans seem to have. And I've recommended them before you put in your claim, go to get the My Migraine Buddy app and start plugging in every time you have a migraine because now you're starting a journal, and that's evidence that you can submit later. And when you have more evidence, you've got a much better chance of your claim being accepted. But there's this issue of veterans that I keep coming across where they get very discouraged with the process. The other thing I see that where they get very discouraged is with their PTSD treatment. Um, Rome was not built in a day. What I really want veterans out there to know is you have to fight for your benefits. You are going to have to fight to get over PTSD. There's a lot that I find who self-medicate with alcohol and marijuana because I'm in California. A lot of veterans here do marijuana, um, but that's kind of like taking cough syrup for tuberculosis. Yeah, you're not going to cough and you're going to feel a little bit better now, but the underlying problem is still there, and you're not really treating the disease. Uh, PTSD, if you're going to go to therapy and try drugs, under the definitely do it. Even if you're doing, self medication, make sure you're talking to a doctor about it, uh, because you could be adversely affecting your health, and doing negative things. But it takes a while, especially when it's PTSD drugs. These are drugs that alter your brain and your chemical makeup, and everybody is different. So it's going to take some time to figure out which drugs are going to work best for you. Uh, for me, I do take one medication, but it's not a high dosage, and it's not one that's I consider altering. So I have to do other stuff. I've learned a lot of calming techniques. I've talked about them on this show, but really address your PTSD. Don't just mask it. Don't cover it up, because when you actually go and try to get it, at least somewhat fixed, your whole life will be better. And I've told that to so many other veterans. And yeah, I'm just seeing it over and over and over again.
You know, Skipper, I think one of the problems that we have today is um, the the reality that everybody has to have some sort of disorder. And veterans are, you and I've talked about this, ad
Mhm.
nauseum, and I don't really care if the the audience or the crowd or the viewers or whatever get sick of it. The average veteran, whether he served in a war zone or not, the average veteran doesn't want to be hailed as a hero.
Mhm.
Uh, you'll notice too, like for me, when someone comes up and says, "Oh, you're a vet. Hey, thanks for your service," it's almost uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Um, we don't do it for the recognition, but when you take all of that in the totality, the scope of what's going on today, a lot of veterans struggle with wanting to be diagnosed or the need to be diagnosed with
Mhm.
PTSD, no matter what may have caused it, because of the fact that so many people today claim to have PTSD. I mean, they claim
Yeah.
to have everything: DID, dissociative identity disorder, bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, like intermittent explosive disorder. And then everybody's got something today. Nobody's responsible for anything. And the people who really deserve to have a judgment free diagnosis
Mhm.
are the veterans.
Yeah.
And they don't want anything to do with it for the most part because of how debilitating it is to your social life. And when you think about it, when you see states enacting red flag laws
Mhm.
and enacting all of these other policies and statutes that say, oh, if you've been diagnosed with a mental health disorder or an emotional disorder, you can't own a firearm.
That
And
PTSD
that's a
actually is not one of those, and there's been several lawmakers who fought against red flag laws because when they initially were trying to do it, they were trying to include PTSD, but it is not included. So if you're a veteran watching and you want a gun, do not be afraid to get a diagnosis of PTSD, thinking it's going to preclude you from owning a gun, because it
it,
absolutely does not.
precisely.
Yeah.
But it's the stigma that's
Oh yeah.
there, and the fact that it's so easy now in states that have red flag laws for somebody to say, "Oh, this guy's a vet. He's been showing depression,
Mhm.
um, and other things," and for them to throw that out there and use those things. And look, not everybody that was in the military has PTSD.
Yeah.
Not everybody and not everybody that has PTSD had to have been in the military.
Mhm.
But
Yep. Most
it's
of our
not a it's
suicides are from people who did not go to combat. So,
right. And I think that's a topic worth maybe looking into in the future if we can get somebody on to talk about that.
and I'll even give up a secret. While I do have a diagnosis of PTSD, that is not what my VA claim accepted. I was accepted for major depressive and anxiety disorder. So, even though I've got PTSD, the VA, they changed when I put in for PTSD. They said, no, you don't have that. You have this. That's what they do. Now, all mental issues through the VA, when you do your claim, are all considered kind of all in the same bag. So it doesn't matter if they, call it one thing or another, you're still going to get your VA claim.
I'd love for us to find somebody to have them come on and talk about PTSD and how and the differences in PTSD versus a lot of the other things that are out there, and especially complex PTSD.
I'll reach out to Donna Quach. She's with You Matter Not Alone. We've had her on the show before, but she's actually a clinical therapist, and she started her nonprofit. And in fact, I'm actually kind of excited. I don't want to ruin her thing, but she's working on an app. I don't know if she's creating it or just working with them, but she reached out to me to see if I would, do some stuff with it, and I told her absolutely. So I'll reach out to her, see if we can bring her on the show, and we'll just talk about the differences on that.
Well, yeah, let's make that happen.
Yeah, I think that would be a good thing because there's a lot of things out there that veterans are dealing with, and whenever I talk to a veteran who reaches out to me for help, have you done your VA claim is one of the very first things I ask, because if they have and it's pending, or if it's on appeal, things like that, there are, and as people know, I've interviewed Congressman Mike Boss, there are things that can be done. I helped out one veteran this last week, or last couple weeks, and he's not 100%. And I said, look, we need to get you up to your 100%. He's dealing with issues and whatnot. And I made a couple calls to some congressman's office, a couple offices, just to see if we can get some type of help for him.
That brings up the issue, and you and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago when I first started to interact with this individual here locally that I'm dealing with here in Minnesota. He's at 100% disability, and he's living on what did I say, like $3,200 a month.
Yep.
Yeah, something right around there, like $3K a month. That's asinine. That 100% disability for a service related disability is less than the median poverty level.
Yeah.
Just asinine. And then we wonder why vets are killing themselves.
And
they're despondent.
I've been talking with a couple veterans who are doing some, I don't know if I would classify it as advocacy, but they're trying to bring in groups together, because what they have is they have their disability, and they've lost their disability, or at least a portion of it, in divorce settlements, which goes against the law, goes against federal law. But I don't want to give up too much about their things, because they are trying to get like a military divorce support organization or club or something going. And I've told them, when you get organized, reach out to me and I'll have you on the show. We'll talk all about it, the challenges you're facing, stuff like that. But that's another issue when courts come in, and disability is supposed to be for your disability. It's not supposed to be income.
Right. And that the individual that I've been talking to, he went to family court, and the Minnesota has a referee system. Literally, that's what they're called. And the family court referee, judge, basically, according to him, held the fact that he had a service dog against him, and said that it proved that he had conditions that made it impossible for him to be an effective parent. And so he ended up giving up his service dog. And so now he's in a situation where I really think he would benefit from it, and he can't afford it now, especially being 100% disabled, can't have a job in the sense of what are the income guidelines now?
Well,
Skipper, you might be able to explain that.
with VA disability, you can have a job. It's when you are taking Social Security SSI. With that, you're limited in your income and you can't get a job. Now, I've had people say that, well, because I have SSI, I can't do my VA disability. From what I know, and we can bring a lawyer, a SSI lawyer, on to talk about it, or a VA lawyer. You can pull from both because, again, your VA disability is not income; it's disability. It's money for your disabilities. So that's why it's not taxable. It's also why, like, when you're on SSI, that's Social Security. You can only make so much money outside of your Social Security, and you're very limited with that. But yeah, your disability money is disability money. That's to pay for your medical expenses.
And the VA doesn't do anything to dissuade people from that thought.
Oh, no, no. The probably the biggest purveyor of misinformation I found is actually the VA. If you were to call the VA and ask them about a service dog, they'd, you get some good VAs who are like, "Oh yeah, we've got organizations," but then there's those like mine that are like, "Yeah, we don't do it." And I was like, "Really? You don't know of anyone who does?" Nope, nope, nope. And standing in the VA, I came across a veteran with a service dog, talked with them. A week later, I ran into another veteran I was at paying my cell phone bill. Ran into another guy with a service dog, talked to him, and he happened to be, for Custom Canines, the veteran outreach coordinator. So that's how I got my dog. And if anyone wants a service dog, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter, on Facebook, anything in our Facebook group. Because yeah, the service dogs are life changing. But I have yet to find someone with a service dog who hasn't said that, because there's so many ways that, I used to go into just into a building and be physically nauseous, just completely sick to my stomach, didn't want to be there. Once I got my dog, that was gone. I knew she had my back. And yeah, it just changed my life, immediately changed my self esteem. And that's why, when I pray, I thank God that I have PTSD. I thank God that I have major depressive and anxiety, because it's made, as I've worked at it, it has made me a better person. And I'll tell you, it made me a better father. As you're aware, my son got a compound bow for Christmas, and we've been doing things outside. He's been firing it and stuff like that. And, I just sit there, and it's a very calming thing for him, I can tell. And I can relate with that. And I'm like, oh my God, I wish I would have had something like this. But now I can recognize that and empathize with that.
Yeah, I'm at a loss because like this is normally the perfect spot for me to pick on you, and I just don't feel like it'd be right. So
Oh, I like being picked on, so feel free. Um, but yeah, you know, that's the challenges I see out there in the veteran community. I fight it every single day. I'm helping one veteran start a charity. I'm helping another person who's got a veterans charity. I always tell them, look, I'll help, but you're dealing with limited knowledge on certain things. Like, I'll tell you exactly what I know, and if it's beyond my scope, I'll just say, yeah, beyond me. This is all I can tell you right to here.
I think one of the big problems that we have is that everybody sees that there's a gap. Everybody sees there's a
Yeah.
hole that needs to be plugged, and there's not enough networking in the sense of all these different groups that are trying to, start charities.
Mhm.
And I think that's probably where we are at our weakest. And what we need to do is we really need to draw together these disparate groups who have the same goal, and say, great, you want to start a charity, great, you want to start an organization, but let's plug you all in, and let's bring in the Indies Coffees, the Brandons and the Carlas and all these other groups. And as you know, I'm slated to have individual, or a couple of people actually, who have started a ranch for veterans in particular with PTSD that are kind of in my area, and I'm going to be having them on my show individually
Yeah.
uh, here very soon. And I want to do that to introduce them to Veteran Nation as well, because I see what they're doing, and how I came across them is actually just, it was meant to happen. Let's put it that way. Um, we had to delay our interview where we were going to sit down and have our conversation this last Sunday, and it stemmed from the fact that a veteran in crisis reached out to them and said,
Yep.
I need to come see you guys, and I need to see you soon. And it happened to be that day, the day that we were supposed to do our conversation. And they just dropped everything for this guy.
I started this show. I agreed to do this show because I was dealing with that gap. And when they said, "Look, we want you to do a show for veterans," I said, "I'm only going to do it if I can help the veterans," because, and I, the people who push back the most on me seem to be people who are doing things to help veterans, who work at different places like the VA, and they're like, "Well, what do you do on your show?" And I'm like, "Oh, I help them get in touch with places that you know they need help for stuff like this." And they're like, "Oh, there's already stuff for that. What about this group?" And it's like, yeah, what you need to understand is, first off, a lot of these groups have very limited funds to begin, because there's limited money out there, limited donors out there. So the money runs out at some of these organizations. Then with others, that's why I always ask the very first question of, do you have a VA rating? Because some of these won't even talk to you if you're not 100%. And the other thing is, if you make over a certain income level, like, I know there's a ton of nonprofits that if I really needed them, they would turn me away, because they would say, "Well, your income is too high. We only deal with people who are below poverty level," and stuff like that. And that's good. We need those, but we also need some of these gap fillers. As I've talked on this show many times, I learned during this show that, yeah, there's a lot of organizations out there for homeless veterans, but female veterans can't take part in most of those, because they're only men only shelters, or if they are co-ed shelters, they can't bring their kids, and most times female veterans who become homeless have kids with them. That's a gap, and people aren't recognizing it. A lot don't realize it exists. Some people just are like, "Well, what's the matter with them?" And then it becomes this whole thing, and that's why I do this show, is to bridge some of those gaps. um
And to tell really bad jokes and
that that
share headlines.
that makes it really worthwhile for me.
I'm gonna need a service just for the jokes.
After about 6 months of doing this show, you're gonna have 1,000-yard stare. Just be like, "I gotta do this again."
I keep telling you, Skipper, like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I've been really busy." Really, I haven't been. I've just been avoiding your headline jokes. So, I
I
think
love it.
one of the issues that we have is what you brought up, is that a lot of the organizations and the charities or whatnot are geared towards, and rightly so, on a
Mhm,
level, are geared towards men and women, in particular men,
mhm.
who are in that poverty line,
Yeah.
because you couldn't possibly be dealing with a mental disorder, an emotional disorder, if you aren't below poverty level. And it's just
Well,
it's a strange conundrum, because we've got so many people out there who claim to have everything under the sun. We've been watching some of these TikToks and whatnot of people who are claiming to have DID and other things,
mhm.
and you could tell they're faking. And so it's such a strange conundrum, because you really don't want to just believe every single person who says they've got something. But the idea that that only the poverty-stricken people are the ones who are legitimately suffering is
Oh yeah.
where we're at our weakest, because there are CEOs of companies, there are small business entrepreneurs, there are people who have full-time jobs who struggle, and they need the help and they can't get it. And quite frankly, I used to tell people this coming out of the law enforcement world, like, I don't want to go in and get a diagnosis, because the second that they find out you have a diagnosis,
Mhm.
you're put up for a fitness for duty exam.
Mhm.
You can lose everything. Now,
Yeah.
like for me, they're pretty sure I was crazy anyway, but here I am not working in that career field anymore, apart from my, clear psychological problems. But they, but, but that's where we're at. So a lot of times people don't reach out for help when they need it because they have a full-time job.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
it's not the homeless veterans that are killing themselves.
that hits very close to home to me because I have someone in my life who, uh, like, has bad PTSD and has had suicidal ideations, has had very, like, very much only PTSD type of symptoms, and refuses to get help because, well, I just don't have time because I've got kids and I've got a job, and is, you know, towing the line to do everything right in life, but for a long time was self medicating with alcohol, was taking part and still kind of does in some very, I wouldn't say at risk behavior, but like very destructive behavior, like it, things that you wouldn't necessarily see as destructive, but can definitely be destructive. For instance, like staying at home and not talking to people for a while. I know that doesn't seem disruptive, but that is a clear indicator of depression. Someone who just stays at their home and doesn't really socialize. You have to force yourself to socialize. I just went through another round where I had some depression, and I reached out to people in my circle and said, "Look, I'm here's what I'm going through. I know I can get through it. I'm just letting you know because you're my circle of friends, and I'm going to be doing this, this, and this to beat it." And it only lasted me a couple days, whereas years ago probably would have lasted, weeks, and would have been very hard for me to deal with.
Right. And that's there again, people just don't recognize it.
Yeah,
It's,
because they're
for
functional.
most, right. Most people think that, people who suffer from clinical depression, uh, or other debilitating mental and emotional health disorders, oh, those are the people who can't leave their house, and they, like, no. Oftentimes, especially with PTSD, you're working across the partition or the table or in the office with, or in the sales floor with someone who is literally dealing with it. But
Well, I'll talk.
because it,
But
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, for me, uh, when I had insomnia real bad, what's open at night? Not a lot. So I would go to one of two places. I would go to Walmart or I would go to the casino. And I'm not a huge gambler, but I would gamble if I was at the casino. And that's, I can recognize that's a destructive behavior. Now, if I go to the casino, I'm going there for fun, not because I'm bored.
See, again, the military side of me it's too easy, and this topic is too serious
Oh, I
to
can be a
pick on me.
degenerate gambler. Like I've talked to a couple of my friends who really gamble. I'm like, you're a degenerate gambler when you're in Vegas at 3 in the morning and you're tapping people, Russian people, be like, hey, you know anything about this Russian hockey game? I just want to know how their injury report's looking.
That might be a sign that you have a problem.
Luckily, I had very limited funds, so it wasn't like I could squander away that much.
Well, my philosophy, my theory for, so we have some native reservations here in Minnesota, and
Mhm.
I I learned a long time ago that you walk in with like $20 in your pocket, and you play your $20, whether it's in increments of 10 cents or 25 cents or whatever. And every time you win, you cash that out and you put it in your other pocket, and you leave your 20 in the first pocket. And when you get to the end of your 20, you stop. You stop. No matter how much you got in your other pocket,
Yeah.
Skipper, you got to
No,
stop, because
I will say that I was always a very disciplined. Like I would take
you
money
were a
and say,
disciplined high roller.
I was not a high roller, but I would take money and say, you know what, I'm comfortable losing this, and I'm just gonna see how long can this money keep me entertained, and that's really what it was. It was trying to
Hmm.
see if I could push it to where I would get tired, so then I could go home and actually go to sleep.
Right.
And of course,
Yeah.
gambling, I was drinking while I was gambling, so it just encourages other destructive behaviors. Luckily, I'm not an alcoholic or anything. Like I don't need alcohol. It's not a crutch for me. So, I was able to pull out of that, but it's a spiral that certain people will absolutely get stuck into.
Absolutely 100%. I have no idea what self-medication is like.
Um, I mean, you're just you're fooling yourself is all you're doing.
I mean, who needs caffeine? I don't. Sorry, it
Well,
was too easy.
what no, when you talk with people who go through like 12-step programs, they normally replace one addiction with the other. Most times it's cigarettes.
Oh.
Uh,
No,
but
most of the time, the replacement for the addiction is the 12-step program.
yeah, that also happens as well. I
My
used
my dad stopped drinking when I was in 6th grade, and he went through treatment for 30 days, and I think he did like 2 or 3 weeks worth of AA, and he said, "I can't go anymore." And I'm like, "Why?" Mom in particular, "Well, why not?" He goes, "It's literally a bunch of guys sitting around being pissed off that they can't drink anymore and talking about it." And like that's all they did. And it's so true. And it's just the way it is. They're addicted to bitching about not drinking.
I posted one day on my Facebook account. I was like, I've been going to a lot of 12-step meetings. Not that I have any problem with substance abuse. I just really like donuts, stale coffee, and really interesting stories.
This is why we can't have nice things.
Yeah. If you're a veteran, you want me to go to a group therapy session with you, I will absolutely do it. Uh, I'm that guy. Like I don't like drama, but I will be the one peering over my fence watching the neighbors fight.
Oh, Skipper.
You know what? This has been a pretty good conversation, but we're starting to come up against our time.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna throw this out there. Kim Potter, twin from the Twin Cities here in Minnesota, was
Mhm.
just convicted today on two charges of manslaughter for the accidental shooting of a young man named Dante Wright. And um, true to form, Dante Wright's family did a TikTok video to celebrate Kim Porter's conviction. So go check that out, because losing a family member in an accidental shooting, screams, "Let's make a TikTok video to celebrate the conviction." And
You can't
and
spell manslaughter without laughter.
you know what? That is indeed true, sir. Um,
Leave it to me
the
to throw in
biggest,
inappropriate jokes.
yes, inappropriate, and then theory, make sure you leave this in. The biggest issue that I have is that, look, I don't care which way you slice it. Kim screwed up. She screwed up.
Yeah.
She made a mistake. Whether I don't believe she did it intentionally, but she screwed up. And I don't know what the right penalty is for that.
Yeah,
But
that's a hard thing. But there's a lot of cases where today where you see something happen, like people are like, "Oh, that's a murder and whatnot," and most of them, I look at them like it's manslaughter if you're gonna call it that. Um,
I think what it is that, and I have to check myself on this too. We want our public servants to be held to a standard that is so precise
mhm,
that there's no room for mistakes, none.
yeah,
And granted, the mistake that Kim made resulted in the loss of life. It just, there's
mhm.
no way to look at it other than that. But is society benefited by
And
putting her in prison for 7 to 10 years?
in
What
most
benefit is there?
in most cases, the worst that's gonna ever happen to her is stuff that's gonna happen inside of her own mind. Nothing in jail or anything like that. Because
Right.
most people, about 80% of society, are not sociopaths and would be very strongly affected by you know something like that happening. Yeah, you do get that small sliver of just uncaring people, but that is not the norm.
Well, and that's, the prosecution made it very clear. Like, my focus has changed so much. I used to have a big beef with defense attorneys, public defenders, paid defense attorneys,
Mhm.
and now, I hate to say it, but I've come to the point where now, most of my jaded mentality is directed at the prosecution.
Mhm.
And the prosecution, whether you go to Kyle Rittenhouse or you look at Kim Porter, what we saw play out here is the prosecution had an agenda,
Yeah.
and
Eh,
they wanted to hang her out to dry, and they painted her out to be this just self-serving monster. And at one point, and I would challenge anybody to go and watch the actual video of the prosecution cross-examining Kim. They made her look like a monster, and accused her of failure to provide, to render aid and other things, and not use the radio, when the video, the body cam footage shows that Kim melted down when she realized what she did, because
I
she's
think
human.
we really need to reform our judicial system, especially as it applies to appeals. Because, yeah, trials
Yes.
and whatnot, they are what they are, but judges also make rulings, and the judge, they're it when it comes into the courtroom. And there's, I've read up on several different things because I've kind of been like you. I've read up on several things where judges have made rulings, and it's like the stuff that they ruled on. It's like, oh my god, what the hell are they thinking? Um,
Well,
so
look at the judge in the Lisa Hanson case from 2 weeks ago that I told
yeah,
you about.
yep,
Here's Lisa, dear friend of mine, and the judge just went to town on her. Just
yeah,
tap
limited her
danced all
defense.
over her. Yeah,
That's
limited her defense, and then dressed her down, and admitted to having a personal bias against
mhm.
her while he was sentencing her. And one of the last things that he said to her when Lisa asked for clarification on what the sentencing meant, he said, "I don't know. You're your own attorney. Figure it out." And there's just this, I don't know.
It's
People,
frustrating.
you need to get in the system, and especially those of us, and I'm sorry to say this, because you and I will have to acknowledge the vast majority of people who are going to watch Veteran Nation, the best damn veteran show this side of the Mississippi, by the way. Um, they're they're gonna come from more of a traditionally conservative mentality,
Yeah,
but it's high time for conservatives to recognize that there's a balance, and to side every time on the side of the prosecution, especially with the way the prosecution is working in the United States today,
Well,
is going to it's going to be an error.
I say the appeals process is probably the biggest thing for reform because it just takes so long. There's such a backlog. And, you know, there are, like a case where someone's defense has been limited. Uh, a lot of times, like that's just the judge putting their own personal bias in. Um, you know, and again, get it in front of a three judge panel and let other judges judge the judges. But that's the thing. We have such a backlog. That's why I'm really hoping that, whatever happens with the elections, that I really hope that there's a constitutional amendment that is proposed and voted on for one, solidifying the Supreme Court at 9 justices, and two, solidifying the filibuster. I think people on both sides of the aisle should be able to agree to that.
No, they can't agree on anything. They can't. Except for war. They all want to go to war. That's it. War is always good in their eyes.
I think we should probably wrap things up before we really go over our time. We're kind of getting close to it right now. Go ahead and plug the coffee again.
You want me to plug my coffee? People would rather. What? It just doesn't show up as well. So if you
put some links in the Facebook group.
If you would like to try the coffee, message me on Facebook, TC Pearson on Facebook. I would love to be able to do another round of ordering. I'd like to get about 1,400 or 1,500 more cases. That's what I'd like to do. But check it out and find me on Facebook, TC Pearson, Minnesota Black Robe Regiment on YouTube and Rumble. And make sure you're following us on Veteran Nation and share this. From my perspective, share this with your veteran friends so that they know they're not alone and that they're not crazy compared to Skipper.
And they can reach out to us. We are available.
Yes.
We're on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. You're on Twitter.
I'm on Twitter.
You're on Rumble. I'm on. I've got my thing on YouTube. Reach out to us. We will help you and put you into contact with people that we know can probably do something for you.
Absolutely.
Well, as always, again, follow us on Facebook. Join our Facebook group, Veteran Nation. Follow me. I'm on at Vet Nation Show on Twitter. You're at Black Robe Regiment.
That's yes
on Twitter. All right. And
And hey, Skipper, where can they support us, Skipper?
Are you talking about something specific?
Well, no, like if they were gonna like subscribe.
They can go to newrightnetwork.com and they can subscribe to the show up through New Right Network as well. And we're doing some cool things there. We're going to be on other networks here in probably next month.
Is she in anxiety mode right now, or is she in the love me mode?
No, she's in the you haven't given me enough attention in the last 30 minutes. So, because she doesn't have her vest on, so she's not working right now.
She's not. Oh, so she's like your girlfriend.
Oh, she does a real good job when she has her vest on. She doesn't bark. She doesn't doesn't really try for attention or anything. But when we get home and that vest comes off, oh, it is on. She is just like any other dog.
How's she doing after your incident?
Oh, she's been great. She's been great.
Good. Good.
We're going to be doing some traveling over the holidays, and she doesn't like to travel, especially on planes. They make her a little bit nervous. But yeah, she's an absolute trooper.
Awesome. From me and from Skipper and everybody at NRN, hey, Merry Christmas. God bless. And you're just going to have to deal with this. NRN is a decidedly Christian network.
They're actually Judeo-Christian. We like the Jews too.
Yeah. Skipper, I was trying to make this all like heartfelt. it's so trite to say Jesus is the reason for the season, but you know what? The truth of it is that no matter what your view is, we celebrate the birth of Emmanuel, God with us, this time of year. And so I would encourage all of you to ask yourselves where you are in your relationship with Christ, and if you recognize that the Father sent the Son to be the propitiation, the penalty that pays for our sins. Christmas isn't about what you get. It's not about time off from work. It's not about um, having time with family. Those things are all great. It's about recognizing the Savior and the fact that he came into the world in the form of man and that he suffered everything that you and I suffered, but was without sin, so that at the end of his life, he could go and suffer on the cross under the wrath of the Father to be the penalty for your sin. And that's what Christmas is really about. And so I think I can say this safely for Skipper and myself. God bless, have a Merry Christmas, and find your peace in the Prince of Peace, in Christ.
Absolutely. And join us again, and thank you for being worth serving.